You know that moment when you finally look up and realize you've got a decent chunk of money sitting there, maybe around $20,000, and it suddenly hits you that the rules have changed? Not in a dramatic movie scene way, but in this quiet, unsettling, very real way, where money stops feeling like extra and starts feeling like responsibility. And honestly, I spend way too much time thinking about money, financial psychology, and why some people seem to level up at certain points, while others kind of stay mentally stuck even after their balance goes up. My name is Threk, and I'm fascinated by that weird middle ground where money is no longer desperate, but it's not really freedom yet either, because that's where a lot of people get trapped. Around $20,000, everything changes even more, not because the number is magical on its own, but because your decisions start compounding in a very different way. Your mistakes get more expensive, your good habits get more powerful, and the gap between "I think I'm doing okay" and "I actually have a system" gets a lot wider. And that shift, it can change the entire way you think about wealth. The first real safety layer. When people are under $20,000, a lot of the focus is survival. Can I cover this bill? Can I avoid overdraft? Can I get through the month without panic? That kind of money stress makes every decision feel immediate, like you're reacting to weather instead of planning a trip. But once you get near or past $20,000, the conversation starts changing. You're no longer just building a tiny emergency cushion. You're building a buffer that can absorb real life. A job issue, a medical bill, a move, a long delay in income. And that matters because financial anxiety doesn't disappear when your income goes up. It usually disappears when your buffer gets strong enough to protect your nervous system. I remember thinking about this like building levees around a river. At first, you just want the water not to flood the room. Then eventually you realize the point isn't just holding water back. The point is creating enough calm that you can think straight. That's what $20,000 starts to do for a lot of people. It buys mental space. And that mental space is not fluffy, it's practical. When you're less panicked, you make fewer dumb moves. That alone can save you more money than some hot investment tip ever will. The identity shift hits harder. Here's the thing nobody tells you. Getting to $20,000 doesn't just change your bank account, it changes the story you tell yourself. At the beginning, money feels fragile. Every dollar has a purpose. Every surprise feels like a threat. But after $20,000, there's a subtle shift where you stop seeing yourself as someone who is always one bad week away from chaos. And that matters because people don't build wealth just by understanding math. They build wealth by becoming the kind of person who can repeat good decisions without needing constant emotional rescue. That sounds dramatic, I know, but it's true. Your self-image gets involved in money, whether you like it or not. Once you've built up real reserves, you start asking different questions. Not, "Can I survive this?" but "What should this money do next?" That's a much stronger position. And honestly, that question is where a lot of people either level up or stall out. Because if you don't define the next move, money gets lazy. It just sits there. Or worse, it starts leaking into random stuff that feels justified in the moment. A nicer car, a bigger apartment, a vacation you weren't really ready for. Nothing evil, just money without direction. The danger of comfort. This is where people get a little weird. Once they hit a meaningful number, they often get comfortable in the wrong way. They stop acting like someone who is building and start acting like someone who has already arrived. That's dangerous. Because $20,000 is not "I'm done." It's more like the runway is finally long enough to accelerate. You can use it to deepen your emergency fund, kill high-interest debt faster, or start investing in a way that actually feels sustainable. But if you treat it like a trophy instead of a tool, it can disappear in slow motion. And slow motion money loss is the sneakiest kind. It doesn't feel like a crash. It feels like, "I deserve this little upgrade. I'll invest next month. I can probably float this expense." And suddenly your cushion is gone, and you're right back to stress. That's why $20,000 changes everything even more, because it's the point where discipline matters more than excitement. It's where boring decisions start separating people. Investing starts to mean something real. Before $20,000, investing can feel abstract. People talk about it like it's some future version of life where everything magically stabilizes and your index funds start doing push-ups in the background. But after $20,000, investing becomes less of a theory and more of a system. Now you have enough money to make investing regular, not random. You can set up automatic contributions. You can think in years instead of weeks. You can let compounding actually do its weird little miracle thing without constantly interrupting it. And that's a huge deal, because wealth is usually less about what you do once and more about what you keep doing. A lot of people want the perfect stock, the perfect entry point, the perfect timing. But the people who actually build something meaningful are usually just the ones who keep showing up with money that doesn't need to be touched. That's the real upgrade at $20,000. You stop playing defense only. You start playing offense with structure. More money, more clarity, more pressure. Now, I won't lie to you. More money also creates more pressure, because once you know what it feels like to have $20,000, you become a little more aware of how easy it is to lose momentum. You start noticing every unnecessary expense more clearly. You feel the pull between enjoying life now and protecting future you. You become, in a weird way, more responsible because the consequences are more visible. And uncomfortable isn't always a bad sign. Sometimes it means your brain is catching up to your circumstances. I think a lot of people assume financial growth should feel constant and uplifting, like a motivational poster came to life. But real financial growth often feels like standing at the edge of a lake, realizing the water is deeper than you thought. A little exciting, a little intimidating, very real. That's why people who reach this stage need systems, not vibes. A savings target, an investing plan, rules for spending, a way to decide what gets money and what doesn't. Because if you don't make rules when you have room, your emotions will make them later. And emotions are not exactly known for long-term planning. What actually changes next? Once you've got $20,000, you're no longer just trying to have money, you're trying to direct it. That's a huge difference. At this stage, the smartest move is usually to look at the whole structure: emergency fund, debt, investing, short-term goals, and lifestyle creep. Not in some rigid spreadsheet over your life way, but in a clear, honest way. What is this money supposed to protect? What is it supposed to grow? What is it supposed to delay? Because the people who keep moving forward are the ones who know that money is a job assignment, not a personality trait. And maybe that's the real transformation here. $20,000 forces you to stop thinking like someone collecting cash and start thinking like someone managing momentum. That's where wealth begins to feel less like luck and more like architecture. Closing thought. So yeah, everything changes even more after $20,000. Your safety changes, your identity changes, your discipline changes, your relationship with investing changes, even the way you react to stress changes, because now you've got something to protect. And the funny part is, this stage doesn't always look glamorous from the outside. There's no confetti, no dramatic soundtrack. Usually, it just looks like a person making quieter, smarter decisions than they used to. But that's what actually moves lives forward. Not the flashy stuff, not the loud stuff, the quiet stuff that keeps showing up. If you're close to this number or already past it, the goal isn't to admire it too long. The goal is to use it well, build the next layer, and keep becoming the kind of person who makes money easier to keep. Because once you learn how to protect momentum, you're not just richer, you're harder to knock off course.